would say, well, it's not just limited to a comparison with the Protestant Reformation. There's a lot of comparisons that can be made with various groups in the early church. Is that also true?
Well, that's right. And so, you rightly said that radical traditionalism is a form of extremism,
Hmm.
right? And what we see in the early church are groups or factions that present extremist views on certain subjects, right?
Yeah.
And the lesson to be learned here, and so, spoiler alert, this is one of the conclusions we're going to come to throughout our conversation. The lesson to be learned here is that Catholicism is, by definition, the mainstream.
Yeah.
It is by definition the kind of way of the place of balance between the extremes. And it is just an observable historical fact that when you're on one extreme, you have trouble seeing the difference between the middle and the other extreme. And so, in response to one extreme, there have always been people willing to go to the other extreme. And I think that's what the radical traditionalists of today are doing. They are responding to something, but they are overcorrecting and going to the other extreme. So in the early church, we have these groups that we refer to as rigorists,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm. Hmm.
They're not technically radical traditionalists. They wouldn't consider themselves that because they were not themselves, supposedly calling on some earlier tradition because they're already in the early church. There wasn't much earlier than them, but they are what we call rigorists. They are the extremists. They are the extra strict factions. And so we can talk about some of these today, and I can just kind of show you how, these rigorous factions represent an extreme, and there is an opposite extreme always, and the church always, always, always takes this kind of middle way, not the middle way as a compromise, but as this place of balance that refuses to go off track one way or the other. So,
Yeah.
that's what we're looking at.
And we're going to look at some specific examples here in just a second. But in my observation of reading the patristics and also just early church history and surveys on early church history, what I noticed was pretty significant changes in our penitential system. And a lot of people got hung up on that. They just found that the church is just too lax. We're not serious enough. And look, there are some legitimate criticisms here. Just as I would say, even the radical traditionalists today, they have some legitimate criticisms. Even back then, there were some legitimate criticisms that the church is becoming too lax. But in that extreme, some people would kind of go to the position of, well, you just can't have any kind of post-baptismal forgiveness of sins. And it was just incredibly rigorous, as you said. So, hey, thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit the like button and the subscribe button. God bless.